One in five suffer.
Erase the stigma.
Brain difference is not a crime.
Mental health isn't just your problem.
It's our problem.
And now, Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays. We're Marla and Dave.
Where do we find all this energy on a Monday?
I don't know. Somebody got a shot of B12 today. Hey, it was me.
It is Mental Health Mondays. I am Marla.
And I'm Dave. And we want to remind you guys to text the word GIVE, G-I-V-E, to 818-698-1021 and support our A Dollar Today Keeps the Stigma Away campaign. We also want to remind you to ding, 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 vote. What am I pointing at? Vote. We voted. We hope you guys too. We're not really telling you how to vote or who to vote for or what to vote for. Just make sure you let your voice be heard because you matter.
It's the only way that we make change, people. And with something, you gotta do it.
Absolutely. Today we welcome back licensed therapist Doug Green. He's a part of the Mental Health Mondays family, and we're honored to have him on the show today. And today we're focusing on the difference between narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder. They're pretty popular terms these days. They get thrown around kind of loosely. We're going to get down to the facts. When we come back, don't move.
When Dave and Marla get together.
Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave and NAMI San Fernando Valley believe it doesn't take much to make life a little better for our neighbors, coworkers, friends, our family members, even our children who suffer with mental illness. When you support our A Dollar Today Keeps the Stigma Away campaign, you are doing your part to erase the stigma surrounding mental illness. For just $1 today, or $1 a day for 1 week, just $7, we can look forward to a future that does not include the unfortunate and uncomfortable stares, bullying, and the subsequent isolation that our loved ones who suffer with brain differences deal with. Text the word GIVE, that's G-I-V-E, to 818-698-1021 to donate. A Dollar Today Keeps the Stigma Away. Brought to you by Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave and NAMI San Fernando Valley.
As Dave said, we want to welcome back, and you are officially part of the Mental Health Mondays family.
I'm thrilled to be adopted. Thank you so much.
So Doug Green, who is a licensed therapist, has joined us before. As a matter of fact, we started our journey. I think this is your third visit here.
That's right.
It's your third visit, and always really good information. We seem to have connected, which, by the way, I want to point that out, that I was speaking with someone the other day, and that honestly is a really big component to finding the right therapist for anyone. That
I think the most important.
I agree, because it doesn't mean that a therapist doesn't know what they're doing. It's just like everything else. Every relationship is not the right relationship for you.
Absolutely.
But you're the right relationship for us.
Well, thanks.
It works for us, Doug. It works for us.
Yeah. No, when I talk to people, give them advice on finding a therapist, my usual thing is find like 3 names, go and talk to each one of them and see who you connect with best, especially with parents trying to get their kids into therapy.
Right.
I say, let the kid make a choice there. And because the connection matters a lot, also it makes the kid feel empowered.
Right.
That's really good
outcome.
advice.
Yeah.
So like we said, narcissism is a term thrown around these days very loosely. Everybody who's mad at somebody is because that other person's a narcissist.
Right.
We were watching Bullet Train last night.
I haven't seen it
So
yet.
good.
It's a really funny movie. It's a really, but you got to be ready for some action that gets pretty violent, but still kind of funny. But I'll put it to you like this. There was a point in the movie where Brad Pitt's character basically said, and this is not going to give too much of it away, you know what, you need some suggestive reading. And he was talking to what appeared to be a little teenage girl, and she said, you know, you need to read How to Survive a Borderline Personality Disorder. And he read off something else, and it was like, wow, there it is. It's so popular. It's just in the movies
But
these
is
days.
it really popular, Doug, or is it really just, is it a catchphrase, or is it something that we've heard so many things that label a behavior, and now we're just throwing those things around every time we see them?
I'll say yes to all of them.
Right.
And they're absolutely, you get these trends. And you get trends in diagnosis as well among therapists. And you get, like, for years, everybody was ADHD. Then everybody was bipolar. And everybody's autistic and whatever. And
how much of that is true? Or is that...
there's no mathematical or scientific thing for a
Right.
diagnosis. It's all what you perceive. Now, with ADHD or autism, there is a scientific issue there, and there are ways of testing it. But with most of these, really, it's what you see. And certainly when you get in the personality disorder realm, it's how they interact, how they do stuff. And as we talked about last time I was here, the defining factor that makes it a personality disorder is, does it impair your life? And we were discussing famous narcissists, but I'm going to say they don't have narcissistic personality disorder. They're just jerks.
Right.
And that there's a difference. There's a big difference. So to get to your question, your question that we ended with last time, what's the difference between these things? They actually are very different. They both come from
And we're talking about the difference between
narcissistic
NPD,
personality disorder.
and BPD.
Exactly.
Okay.
The borderline personality disorder. The narcissistic one, they both come from hurts in the self-image, which happens to everybody as a child. But the narcissistic personality disorder person sees everything about themselves, and to a painful degree. But they're so important. Everything is about them. Everybody's thinking about them all the time. The borderline personality disorder feels almost the exact opposite. I'm sorry?
Worthless.
Can be worthless, yes. Or worse than worthless, like bad. And that every relationship, there is so much value on the relationship. So I want to please you so badly, and if you leave me, it is so terrible. And so I make you that you are the most wonderful person in the entire world. You're the best person there is, and I will treat you that way. And then you do something that makes me feel betrayed, and you are the worst person in the world.
There's no gray.
Yeah. Or varying shades of awful.
Now, where in
Varying
there
shades of awful.
is that like an extreme version of the truth, so to speak, or is that stuff that they can just simply start to make up in their mind and perceive stuff that's actually not there?
I love your question. I'm going to give you two different answers to it. One of them is that the term borderline personality disorder comes because early on, I think we're talking about Freud here, said they're borderline psychotic. So I've known cases where somebody had attachment issues very clearly.
Yeah.
They were scared. They'd feel abandoned. They'd feel betrayed, whatever. And then they actually would say to me, but you said this that night. And it was something that never came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
The opposite of anything that came out of my mouth. And I realized, you heard that. You are in the psychotic realm. It's in there.
Okay. Because I was going to say, why don't you just define loosely what psychotic that term actually means?
Yeah. Believing something that does not exist. Truly believing it.
Yeah.
And experiencing it in this case.
Wow.
So, what we
So the
associate with
feelings are as if
schizophrenia.
you experienced it.
Oh, but not just as if. Like
That is the reality for them.
That's
That's
their
a reality.
So, and again, that's not normally what you see here,
Yeah.
but I've
Extreme
seen it
case.
happen.
Yeah.
But I have seen it happen, and it's terrifying. But the other point I will say, because I'm not going to remember the exact words that you said, but the one treatment that has shown up in 100 years of work on borderline personality disorder
Dialectic behavioral therapy.
is dialectical behavioral therapy. And the key of that is dealing with the ability to understand that two apparently opposite things can be true at the same time. So Marla loves Dave more than anything in the world, and Dave knows it. She loves me more than anything in the world, and this one morning, she's so mad at you for whatever reason. You're not in the room. Marla is so mad at Dave for something. And Dave, if you had this borderline personality disorder, it's like those two don't make sense. So she must hate you.
Yeah.
Okay, hold that thought. We'll be right back. We're going to a break. This is good.
Okay, you hate me.
I hate you.
Let's
We'll
go to
be back.
break.
Those two things are true.
It's time for the Mental Health Minute with Marla and Dave.
What is an anxiety disorder? Well, it's a chronic condition characterized by an excessive and persistent sense of apprehension, with physical symptoms such as sweating, palpitations, and feelings of stress.
People with anxiety disorders respond to certain objects or situations with fear and dread. According to mentalhealth.gov, anxiety disorder is diagnosed if a person has an inappropriate response to a situation, cannot control the response, or has an altered way of life due to the anxiety.
The 5 major types of anxiety disorders are generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder or OCD, panic disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder PTSD, or social phobia or social anxiety disorder.
If you or anyone you know shows serious signs of anxiety, please, we ask, contact a mental health professional to get much needed help. This message is brought to you by Mental Health Monday with Marla and Dave.
I never do anything without thinking about it first.
Marla is a feeler.
I basically wear my personality on my sleeve.
But when Marla and Dave get together, it's like a match dancing with a firecracker.
And we are back with Doug Green. I think we left off that Marla hates Dave.
Well, right. But at the same time, Marla can love Dave. And in Marla's world, those two things can exist.
Wait, I thought I was the one
No,
with the...
you have borderline personality disorder.
Oh, okay.
In the example of this.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Right. And so you can't...
Which hat am I wearing? Who's on first?
Yeah. So therefore, as Doug was explaining to us, when those two things exist for you, that can't... Those two things can't exist.
Can't be reconciled.
No.
So the fallback solution for my mind is that you hate me.
And that thereby Marla is the worst person in the world.
Okay.
And
I take
have
it to the next level.
I have heard borderline people use this term. They don't realize how, they're fitting the
Wow.
definition. We say, you're a horrible, horrible person. You are a terrible person. You're the worst person I've ever known. And like, oh my God, do you realize what a textbook
just
you
classic.
are? It's just like,
Hilarious. Well, we've got
sad
questions,
scenario.
and I've encouraged everybody today to put their questions in the chat room.
Okay, great.
Fiona asks, but how does believing something that you think you've heard differ from mishearing something? And why is the first one psychotic and the second one just a misunderstanding?
I would argue that I've been misheard many times, or I'll say I've misheard people many times, and then they tell me what they actually said, and I go,
Oh, I'm corrected.
okay,
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong, or maybe
Maybe
you think you said that. I think what I heard was right, but it doesn't go somewhere else. The other one is, no, you said this, and you're lying to me because you're a terrible person. You're denying that you said it. It's a different thing in that way.
So I think
how you treat it.
I think that the interesting thing that I just heard, and I kind of have understood this, but when Doug says that this perception is such a reality for them that they truly believe it. So even though there's no factual basis other than their feeling.
Again, you got to remember, he even took it further than that. They experience it that way.
That's what I'm
Not
saying.
just believe. That's the way it is for them.
Right. So it doesn't have to come from. And I'm saying that's a.
Well, that to me that creates another whole level of issue because, if someone truly experiences things that way, and then the rest of us, it's just not factual. And like you said, borderline psychotic.
Right.
Because you're actually not just believing something that doesn't exist, but you've experienced it. And so.
And if they're right, then I'm crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to fight even harder. And
Right,
say,
to
they must
explain,
all be lying
exact-
to me. It's conspiracy.
Exactly. And that's
And so it's, go ahead.
No,
Say
no,
what
I
you're
just,
gonna say.
this is so deep for me because this is the type of conversation on a therapy level that I'm super glad we're having, because I was just saying before you came, understanding the personality disorder lane of it's a lane of psychology is deep, because so often it's so interwoven you don't even realize, and so you do spend your time not just going, please, that's your reality, you know better than that, not even inside yourself, you're trying to convince that person with all your might of the facts and different details, and no, don't you remember, like, that is not what I said, like, you, and then
Right.
come here, like, you have this thing.
But I'm adding the emotional component to it. So tomorrow, you call me and say, Doug, why didn't you show up for the show last night? I say, I was there. And you say, no, you weren't. I think, did I dream?
Doug, you're always lying about this kind of thing.
I'm going, did I dream it? What is going on here? This is weird. I'm going to go to that place.
Right. You're trying to figure out.
But if I'm used to being told I'm wrong all the time, I might be really mad and start yelling at you. Stop doing this to me, Marla. I was there. You're crazy. I was there. It's a different emotional side to it because they've been getting it so much.
Yeah.
And again, it's so much of it with the borderline issue goes back to fear of abandonment, which none of us want to be abandoned. We all
Right.
hate being abandoned, but it's a dire, dire pain.
And let's take that same hypothetical situation and put the narcissistic personality disorder person in that same situation.
So
Marla then accuses you of not being at the show.
I am probably going to go, Marla is just crazy. That's so crazy. She's so stupid. I am so much smart.
Right.
But or Marla's trying to, probably more like Marla's trying to do something against me. Marla's trying
It's
to,
a conspiracy.
she's trying to not pay me for the show. By the way, I'm not paid for the show. But
There he goes.
she's
There's
trying,
another sinister plot behind it.
yeah, it's about me. Marla and Dave don't like me, and they've chosen to do this thing. They're going to put somebody else's show in here because they're jealous of my genius. Maybe something like that. I
Something
don't-
like that. And so to me, on certain
And then
situations,
and then he becomes the president. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, what's my bad? Whoops.
Sorry,
my
I'm
bad.
not running.
and then, so in certain circumstances, the reactions could feel similar. It's kind of what it almost feels like to me.
Well, that's why the personality disorder, because in both cases, it can be a way of living. You know, one thing about borderline, mild cases of borderline, you will find a great deal of it in the entertainment industry. I am sure
Yeah.
you both have seen this.
Yep.
I will say it is the classic actress personality.
Wow.
Doesn't mean every actress I've known is borderline, but it is. You see it a great deal. It's somebody who's saying, "Please pay attention to me," and I'm willing to go through hell to get
Yeah.
attention paid to me.
And I would
Borderline
imagine,
kinda helps with that.
I would imagine, combine that with a weak sense of self, which allows you to play somebody else pretty well.
That could apply, yes, and to please, and to be so eager to please. But it's,
So-
I often say most of the people I've seen
What-
in the acting profession are miserable.
What
it's
about-
the worst thing they could choose.
The,
to get
What
rejected
about
all the time.
the
Wow.
deregulated emotions? What about the anger? Where is that? And I'm asking, is that attached to either NPD or BPD? The
both.
elevation,
Both.
Both.
Yeah.
Certainly BPD. It's because it's
because like
you-
me
you feel-
doesn't denote the rage.
like me.
You're saying like a person who's saying, like they want to be liked.
I
We talked about
I
the
want
actors.
you to like me, and then if you do, I feel totally accepted. And then the moment you abandon me, I am furious.
And for the narcissistic personality disorder person, I would imagine any time that what you're doing, I don't feel is serving me, or you don't do something that I want you to do, then suddenly you're the enemy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just and you're missing the point.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Man.
Right.
So I was going to ask, if you don't mind, how does dialectical behavioral therapy address that? Because the way you're describing it, I don't see how a person with borderline personality could accept any type of treatment.
It's all a matter of degree.
Yeah.
And if you're at an extreme case, the cinematic example that's always good to throw out is Fatal Attraction.
Absolutely.
If you're Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction, no, therapy isn't going to help.
Right.
Yeah.
But or maybe it'll help reduce you to just miserable instead of murderous.
Psychotic.
But for most people, it's just pain that they're in. They're in pain, and that's the thing is borderline personality people are so irritating. A lot of the time that we leave out, we miss the point. They're in more pain than they're causing me.
Well, that was another term or phrase that Brad Pitt's character used in the movie. Hurt people.
Yeah, that's
sure.
Absolutely
absolutely
standard.
true, and that goes
across the board,
across the socioeconomic things and everything else here.
So Doug, I have to just ask you, for all of us who are listening here, and myself, what as a therapist, because I'm hearing so many things that almost make it just sounds like a hopeless catch-22 for being able to break through with treatment. What is the best way to support and or identify if you are that person?
Yeah, well, to identify, I would say go see a therapist, and maybe
do
ask.
Borderlines accept if you were okay? So
very often they do.
Okay,
and so because the pain is so real, and they might just walk in there and say, "I don't understand why." I'll say, someone walks into the therapist and says, "Why does everybody abandon me?" That's
Good.
a pretty big
that.
red flag.
Yeah.
And then if you're willing to hear it, because getting that diagnosis is probably the key to you having a lot happier life. And it's, why does my leg hurt so much? Because it's broken. Oh, now we can do something.
So in other words, you're saying the therapeutic roadmap is to actually speak to the pain itself.
Absolutely.
Which sort of bypasses the feeling of you're such a bad person.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or
but
there's something wrong with you.
But you're going to go through. You're not going to bypass it. You're going to go right through
Right.
it.
But I mean,
it's going to be hard work.
The initial feeling is this is going to help ease your pain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if you
That
can
makes
trust it and remain consistent with it, DBT works great wonders. Yeah.
Now, how often does someone with either a narcissistic personality disorder, I'll start there and then I'll say also the same question for borderline personality disorder, how often do they themselves initiate treatment?
Fairly
Because I would
often,
think a
because
narcissist would be,
like now it's not.
why would I even need treatment?
It's never them. It's always they're always blaming.
Unhappy. And this is my third marriage that's failed. Something's wrong. And again, you're not going to totally get rid of narcissistic personality disorder. We all, as I've said before, we all have all of them in us to some degree. These qualities in us to some degree. You're not going to get rid of it. But if you get to the point of saying, wow, this is who I am, here's the better way to live to deal with it. I really fear abandonment, so I better pay good attention to my friends and loved ones and try to make relationships stronger and deal with the fact that when somebody leaves, it hurts like hell, but that doesn't mean they're the most terrible person in the world.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing.
But
It's just tough.
Yeah, but when we come back from this next break, what I really want to focus on is the specific ways that dialectical behavior therapy addresses the borderline personality issue. And in other words, because it seems like, from what I know about it, almost a suspending of my own perception and trusting an if-then process in order to get things to work better for me. I might be right. Doug's going to tell me if I'm on the right path. We'll be right back. Oh, no! Oh, yeah. It's time for Marla to do her thing. Oh, yeah. Here she goes. Oh, yeah. Here she goes. Oh, there she goes. It's poll time. All right, Marla, what was the poll question last week?
You know what, Dave? Last week, I'm going to tell you exactly what we asked. We asked, how much money does the global economy lose every year due to depression and anxiety? And you know what the choices were, Dave?
What?
Doug, 500 billion, 1 trillion, or 2 trillion? What do you think, Doug?
How much money does the global economy lose every year due to depression and anxiety? 500 billion, 1 trillion, 2 trillion.
Well, I'm going to have the same problem I've had with a bunch of these questions you guys have asked me. And said, who makes these numbers up? I don't. Yeah, it's always assumption. But
Assume with us.
I'll assume. Let's go in the middle. Let's say 1 trillion.
1 trillion. Ding,
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 ding, ding, ding.
Doug was just playing.
Ladies and
he
gentlemen,
already knew the answer.
Dave is playing a therapist on TV, but Doug Green is actually a licensed therapist.
All right, let's try another
with
one.
the right answer.
Let's try another one.
That's pure luck.
That's still a lot of money, though. I mean, that's a heck of a lot of money.
It's a heck of a lot of money, but I'm saying you'd have to see how they made that decision.
That's true. That's true.
Right.
What are the qualifications that go into the statistics? Anyway, what percentage? The question for next week is what percentage of U.S. adults suffer from anxiety disorders? 19%, 27%, or 34%? What percentage of U.S. adults suffer from anxiety disorders? 19, 27, or 34%?
I can tell you what percent suffer from anxiety. About 99.9.
Nowadays, yeah.
but diagnosed
Pathologically.
with disorders, or is this an
The
assumption?
we're going to go with diagnosed.
That means that many are in therapy. I don't know if 19% of Americans are in therapy. I'm gonna go with the low one on this one.
All right.
Well,
you know
Doug
what?
has spoken.
Next
and
time I
we'll-
go to Vegas, I'm taking Doug.
Doug
but
gets to go.
we'll see if Doug answered that one correct.
And we have to
next
say
week.
as well that Trusty Scribe did come in the middle for us. So he
Oh, he did. I
he
forgot
did.
to mention that.
He did.
Way to go, Trusty.
All right. We'll be right back. And don't forget, $1 today keeps the stigma away. Text GIVE to 818-698-1021. All right, take it home, David.
All right,
and
so
Doug.
I was asking, how specifically does dialectical behavioral therapy work?
Well, I have to admit, it's not something I do. You have to have very specific training, and it's a process that you're in for maybe up to 2 years when you do it. And you're in at least once a week. It's a very big
Intensive.
commitment.
It's intensive.
Yeah.
I thought even more than that, like the frequency.
It's and I'm saying the groups for that. You
Oh,
might
okay.
have been therapy as well,
Right.
and doing other things.
Right.
So I'm no expert, but the main thing I know is that while you're getting therapy, while you're dealing with stuff like why does everybody abandon me?
Yeah.
I need somebody to shoulder to cry on about the fact that I've been abandoned again. That working on this aspect of understanding that these two things that seem to be impossible to be in the same truth can be in the same truth. It's getting the brain, it's an untraumatizing, I guess is the best way I can say it. To get that to happen helps you accept life. And again, I'm in love with Marla, Marla's in love with me, and Marla leaves me to go tour with Dave.
Yeah.
Never happened.
Would never happen. And
Won't.
a lot of this story is not accurate here. So, but
No, we're joking.
But do I feel completely devastated, completely wrecked that you have left for 2 weeks with your husband?
Right.
Or do I say, oh, I'm going to miss you for those 2 weeks.
Right.
I hate this feeling, and I'm okay. That's the thing. One doesn't mean that
The
much.
two issues aren't diametrically opposed.
I've got another
Just
question we
kinda-
got to ask before we actually finish here.
Okay.
Someone is asking, can both disorders develop in childhood and your upbringing?
I will say both disorders begin in childhood. Absolutely. They come from childhood wounds. No question. There is a tendency, I'm not putting it on people, but people who have borderline very often raise borderline children because the kids are raised with attachment problems from this stuff. But the things show up, I think, mostly in teenage years, and it's a big thing I push on students I teach all the time. A normal 14-year-old girl has all the qualities of borderline personality disorder. A normal 19-year-old boy is going to show the qualities of narcissism.
Yeah.
Do not put that label on them. They are going through a tough time, an age. It doesn't mean this is a permanent thing. So in a way, I'd say it can start in childhood, but I wouldn't diagnose it for a long time after that.
Yeah. That's,
Awesome. So we
sage
hope
wisdom.
that answered your question, Angela. Thank you, Doug, for that.
Thank you.
Always, Doug, when you come through, you bring such precise knowledge and clarity to the things that matter, because we're all searching for the same thing. I know I am, and that's just
Also a clarity of communication, so that we can understand it better.
Can I throw in one other?
Yes,
thing here on this?
Here's a ball. Throw it.
Okay, so because I'm generally facing you during this show, I'm sure it's been very clear to audience members, he's got something on his nose.
I saw
What
that.
is that? What
I
is
was
that?
like,
it's that my wonderful dermatologist I visited last week, she found a little thing that might be precancerous, took it off. It's kind of ugly, so I put a little Band-Aid on there. Now, my point is, if I had narcissistic personality disorder, I might have called you up and canceled about doing this show. I'm going to go on there. Everybody's just going to be looking at that thing on my nose. They're all going to think they're never going to hear a word I say.
Yeah.
If I had borderline personality disorder, I'd be saying, Marla and Dave are just staring at my nose. I know it. I know it. And I can't stand this. It's horribly awful.
They hate
As
me.
it is, I thought, oh, that's too bad. I'm going on Marla and Dave. People are going to look at that, and for 5 seconds, they're going to wonder about it, and then they're going to start listening to the conversation.
Right.
That's what I'm describing. It's an ease. It doesn't mean if I don't have those, I'm not going to think, oh, this looks stupid on my nose. It does look stupid on my nose. It just looks better than if I don't have it on my nose.
Right, which is why we address those things,
But that's what
But
I'm
his
saying.
perspective,
the mental
yes.
health is just to smooth things out a bit.
I appreciate that. I
bring a
really
balance.
do.
Sure.
And as usual, Doug, you always help us see things a little more clearly.
We're going to toss you some
Like
more
this thing on my
topics.
nose.
We're going to toss you some more topics in the future, Doug, and we're going to get some more clarity out of you. We're just going to
Okay.
we're going to milk you for all the clarity you
And
can
then
bring.
when I come in, I'm going to look like Jack Nicholson in Chinatown. I'm going to
There
have the whole thing all over.
Dave had that last week, as a matter of fact. A big
did you?
beat.
I did. You got to check it out. It was Halloween, so it was.
Oh, you dressed as Jack Nicholson?
I did not. I don't even know what I was
wor-
dressed
he
like
was-
last
he was
week.
he was a Phantom of the Opera.
I was whatever stuff I
clown.
found around the house.
He was a clown. He was a casserole clown. is what he
Next
was.
week, we'll be talking with Dr. Chris Aiken. Thanks again,
Doug.
friend.
Okay, thank
Our
you,
buddy
friends.
Doug Green, licensed
Thank you.
therapist. He'll be back.
Thank you.
See you guys next time.
Bye.
Thank you all.
It's raw, real, and unfiltered.